Hi, this is Henry McDonald. I'm a member of the Fantasy League Baseball channel, where we talk about baseball content and also show some of our games from our Fantasy Baseball League, where we use baseball cards and dice rolling to play a game. So you can access that channel with the link in the description. It's me and my brother and my friend, and we just talk about baseball. There's a lot of videos there, and you can check out that content. So, uh, I'd love it if you could like and subscribe to both. Subscribe to that channel, and then also like and subscribe with this video. So today, I'm not going to be doing something baseball related. I'm going to be doing something basketball related, and I'm going to be ranking the top 20 players in the league right now. Just one thing that I need to point out and get out of the way. I'm not an enormous basketball person. I like the league. I follow the league. I know a significant amount about the players and stuff, but it's not like I'm a genius. So if there's someone I left out, if there's something that just seems obvious that I didn't do, just notify me and I'll tell you if I agree with your correction. But I think I'm gonna just get into this list. So what I'm going to do is I'm first just going to read the list out, and hopefully you can see on the screen the list with a Google document that I made, and it's LeBron James number 1, then Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Stephen Curry, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Anthony Davis, Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, Damian Lillard, Joel Embiid, Bradley Beal, Jimmy Butler, Kyrie Irving, Paul George, Trae Young, Jason Tatum, Russell Westbrook, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell. And if you can actually see my screen, which I hope is the case, if I figure out how to edit that in, you'll see that I've got it into different tiers, and that's what the different highlighted colors are. So the first tier is 1 through 5, the second is 6 through 11, the third is 12 through 15, and the final one is 16 through 20. So the tiers are just like what type of level player they are and what I think their roles are. And like, so the first 5 guys, I feel like these are just the superstars of the leagues. The guys that if you're a team, you want these players. If they're a free agent, everyone's going to be going at them. Stuff like that. And the second is players who are still stars and still have like the ability to win an MVP or have won an MVP, but just you wouldn't quite put them on the same level. So like Harden and Davis, they are superstars, but they're second options on their teams. And Jokic, Doncic, Lillard, Embiid, I feel like they're rising up to that level of LeBron or Durant or Giannis. Like they're starting to have really good seasons. All of them are just performing incredibly. All of them could win the MVP this season, and they're starting to look like players who are on that MVP level, on that I need this player level, but I just don't think quite yet. And then the next level is you're still a superstar in this league, but you're either just coming up into this status, or you've never been considered quite on that level, and that's Bradley Beal, Jimmy Butler, Kyrie Irving, and Paul George. I mean, with Paul George, he was the top option on his team in Indiana, but that's just too long ago to really think about. With Jimmy Butler, like, I get that he took his team to the NBA Finals. He's a great team leader, but he just doesn't put up the numbers. Bradley Beal, yeah, he's on pace to win the scoring title this season, but he doesn't do a lot else, and he's a pretty young player, so I feel like those things make him where he is. And then Kyrie Irving just has been a second option in his entire career, except for that year in Boston where he did not do very well. I feel like in order to be a top-notch player, like you either have to be an insane second option or just a great superstar. And when he had the opportunity to be that great superstar, the leader of his team with Boston, he didn't do very well, and he kind of got like booed by his fans, I think. So he definitely doesn't make it up to that tier, but he's obviously having a great season this year. And then the next tier is like players who are either rising stars or declining stars, or just players who never really, like, always have been considered all-star players, but never been, like, really quite on the next level, or they have, but they just aren't anymore. So that's Trae Young, Jason Tatum, Russell Westbrook, Devin Booker, and Donovan Mitchell. So other than Westbrook, they're all young players who are starting to get to that superstar level, but just aren't quite there yet. And then for Russell Westbrook, was just a beast. Won an MVP, averaged a triple double in 3 straight seasons, but he's declined since then, and he's still putting up great, really consistent numbers. He's a great defensive force. He's a great all-around player, and he's certainly going to be a Hall of Famer when he does retire. But he's not scoring nearly as well as he used to, and I think that has something to do where I have him. So number 1 is LeBron James, and I hate to do that because I hate LeBron. I always rooted for the Warriors when they played in series, but I have LeBron at the number 1 spot because he just led his team to the NBA Finals, and he's just got such a great track record, right? I mean, there's not a lot of, there's starting to be more guys who can really do it all and can get rebounds and assists and stuff like that, but he's been doing that for almost 20 years, and I feel like just the way he plays the game is really, really impressive. The fact that he's averaging almost 8 rebounds and assists along with 25 points, a steal, and about half a block per game. Like, I get that those numbers statistically aren't even as good as someone like Luka Doncic, who's getting more rebounds, assists, and points, but you have to remember, well, Luka Doncic is leading his team to 6 seeds. LeBron's leading his team to number 1 seeds, winning NBA titles, and you know that he's always going to do this. He's got that level of consistency that there's not really another match. So I get where his numbers resemble like players who are a little bit farther down, and that's one of the reasons why I could make an excuse for having him lower. But I feel like that would just be biased. There's not really a lot of denying it. He's the best player in the league. But there's a few players who could have taken that spot, and one of them is certainly Kevin Durant, who is one of the greatest scorers of all time. Some people think he's the second greatest scorer of all time, only behind MJ, and some weird people who don't know anything and have complete recency bias think he's the best scorer of all time. But Kevin Durant, certainly a incredible basketball player. What he's done with OKC, the scoring ability he had there, and the efficiency of his scoring also, just because he's always played with other great players, right? He's doing that now with Brooklyn. He did that with OKC with Russell Westbrook and James Harden, and he did that in Golden State with Curry and Clay. He's always had great scoring teammates, and he's always been able to understand, if I take a lot of shots, that means my other teammates aren't, and they can't succeed. But if I can still put up those 25 plus points per game, but do it on less shots, I'm giving my teammates more opportunities. And that's why, even though he doesn't do a ton of other things, he still is just an elite player because of his scoring and his scoring efficiency. And you know, his scoring definitely dropped in Golden State, and that's understandable, but he's picking it back up in Brooklyn, averaging 29 this season. He was the second best player in the league when he got injured, and I feel like he's just getting right back to it. You know, if he had shown any signs of decline, I would have questioned, because of his age and the injury, if he's going to be nearly that high of a level player, but he showed that he is. So next is Giannis Antetokounmpo, and back-to-back MVPs, the Defensive Player of the Year. There's just not really a lot of arguing about Giannis Antetokounmpo. I feel like if you don't think he's a top 5 player in the league, there's kind of something wrong with you. He's averaged over 29 points per game in back-to-back seasons, if you include this season, which isn't over, obviously. He's averaged over 10 rebounds per game 4 straight years. He's even passing well. He's got 6.4 assists per game. That's incredible for a center. We're talking about Jokic being a great passing center, but Giannis isn't a bad one either, and then obviously a great defensive player, averaging over 1 steal and block per game. So, Giannis, just a great big man. If he continues what he's doing for a long period of time, he's going to go down as, you know, one of the greatest big men in history, along with guys like Shaq, Kareem, and Chamberlain and Russell. He's not there yet, and I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm saying if he does what he's done in the last 4 or 5 years, for another 10 years, that's where he's going to be, because the numbers he's putting up just haven't been matched by big men, really, or beaten by big men, ever. And then number 4, we've got Stephen Curry. And Curry, some people would have a little bit higher, like my brother, who's a big Curry fan, but I just don't think he quite gets there with what he's done so far this season and the past seasons. Like Durant, he was injured in 2019, and in his 5 games, he only put up 20 a game. So, certainly one of the best players in the league before making the move. Sorry, not before making the move, just before getting injured. He won 2 MVPs. He's always been able to score 25 plus points. He's always been an incredible free-throw shooter and an incredible three-point shooter. He's got some of the greatest in those statistics ever. And he's scoring, he's got the second best points per game of his career this season. So if, again, like KD, if anyone thought that if he wasn't playing elite and like he's always played, you'd question if he's still a top 5 player. But since he's coming back from injury and continuing to play like a superstar, I really have no doubt that he's one of the best players in the league. And I have him at number 4. So then, number 5, we've got Kawhi Leonard, who I almost certainly spelled his name wrong. But he's one of the best players in the league, and I think he got a little bit overrated after his win with the Raptors in the 2018 to 2019 postseason. He obviously went off, had that buzzer beater, the quadruple bounce, just insane. And that incredible postseason performance, but he's certainly one of the best players in the league, because back when he was on San Antonio, he was winning DPOYs, and he was kind of like a Draymond Green-like player, except he was scoring a lot more. And he's gone from fringe 20-point-per-game seasons to over 25 and kind of close to 30-point-per-game seasons. So if you've got a guy who's competing for DPOY, who's also scoring 25-plus points and grabbing 6-plus rebounds and getting about 5 assists, you've got something really, really, really special. He's scoring at an elite rate. He's playing elite defense. Another thing is, he's a great postseason performer, and that has to mean something. That's how you can argue that he's better than Giannis. You can't really argue that for Durant and LeBron because they have, or Steph, because they have the same type of postseason appearance, talent. But with Kawhi, he just turns on, and he's fantastic. He's got 2 Finals MVPs, and he could easily get a 3rd with LA. He can knock down anyone. He's went up against Giannis, he's went up against LeBron, and he's been able to guard them and do better than them and win against them. So there's not a lot of bad things to say for Kawhi. He's one of the best all-around players. He's one of the best two-way players the league's ever seen. And then number 6, we got James Harden. So James Harden obviously has cemented himself as one of the better scorers that the league's ever seen, with that insane 36.1 point per game season. And going to Brooklyn, that was incredible. I mean, they already had Kyrie and KD, which makes a pretty good super team, but then adding James Harden, that basically gives you 3, arguably, in my opinion, spoiler alert, top 20 players. So obviously his scoring's going to drop when he's got 2 other all-stars on his team, but he's still playing really well, and he's figuring out how to have value. I was thinking, this Brooklyn team's only going to work if one of those 3 guys says, you know what, I'm not going to always get the ball. And I feel like the main problem is between Kyrie and Harden, because KD, as I said, he can play with other good players because he doesn't need a lot of shot attempts, but those guys, they take a lot of shots, and I was worried about what was going to happen, but basically what happened is James Harden was like, you know what, I want to win a championship. That's why I went here. I didn't come here to have another 30-point per game season, and he's still putting up good points per game with 25. That's still elite. But then he's also getting 11 assists and 8 rebounds. He's pretty close to averaging a triple-double with 25 points. He's not getting talked about enough. He was a top 5 player. Obviously, that's going to decline, but he's passing like no one in the league, and he's also scoring at a high rate and also rebounding really well for a shooting guard. So he's going to fall in at number 6. And then number 7, we've got Nikola Jokic, who is one of the leading MVP candidates. One of the leading MVP candidates, and although he hasn't been a great scorer up until this year, he's got 27.1 points per game, so he's always been an incredible passing big man. He's always been able to give you triple-double-like numbers because he can obviously get 10 rebounds as a center, and he's one of the few centers who can put up double-digit assists, not per game, but on a night, and you can expect that out of him on a good night. And, well, he's always never been at the scoring level of other elite centers. He picked up the slack and averaged 27.1 this season, so that makes him one of the best players in the league. Not a lot of postseason appearances or success because he's a young player, but still. And then number 9, we've got Luka Doncic, one of the most exciting players in the league. He plays for the Dallas Mavericks, and back-to-back seasons he's averaged close to 9 rebounds and assists with over 28 points per game. So right now he's averaging 29 points, 8.4 rebounds, and 9.2 assists of Russell Westbrook caliber stats. Just a triple-double machine, someone who always has the opportunity to win the MVP, and he's really young, and he doesn't have a lot of experience, and, stats aren't everything. He's not a particularly great defender, but just the way that he can control the floor, his slow-paced style, his passing ability, it just makes him a really elite player. And then number 10, halfway through, we've got Damian Lillard. So Damian Lillard is the point guard for the Portland Trail Blazers, and he has been a consistent 25-plus point scorer for his entire career, but if that was it, I don't think I would have him this high. He's a good passer. He usually gets about 6 per game assists-wise, but he's an elite scorer and passer, but along with that, Dame time, he's one of the clutchest players in the league, if not the clutchest player in the league. Just so many buzzer beaters, so many game winners, so many incredible postseason performances. There's just not a lot of guys who can take a team like Portland and make them a legitimate contender, because that's what he's done. I mean, Portland just never had that great of a supporting cast, but he's managed to get them all the way to the Western Conference Finals in 2019 to 2020. So really, really good player in Damian Lillard. And then number 11, we got Joel Embiid, who, him and Jokic, they get compared a lot, but I think I would go with Jokic because, well, Embiid might be the better scorer. They're similar in terms of rebounding and stuff like that. And then, I mean, obviously, the passing of Jokic just destroys the passing of Embiid. Embiid, just a traditional big man. He can give you 25 in a night and 10 rebounds. Obviously, a really good center, and he doesn't do much else, though. He's not particularly good at assists. He only averages 3.1 for his career, and in terms of blocks, he's got 1.7 for his career. He's averaging 1.4 this season. A good blocker, but just nothing that special, so he's going to fall in at 11. Still really, really good, though. And then number 12, we have Bradley Beal. And Bradley Beal, if it wasn't for this season, he'd be on the level of a guy like Devin Booker, who I've at 29. But the way he scored in the past 2 seasons, 32.1 this season, and he's got 30.5 the season before. He doesn't do much else, not a great passer, not a great rebounder, just kind of a traditional shooting guard, but he sure can score. And I think if you've got a guy who can get that many points, I don't understand why the Wizards aren't better, because Russ is having a good season and Bradley Beal obviously exploding, but 12 might be a little bit high, but I felt like it was reasonable for what he's doing this season. And then number 13 is Jimmy Butler. And I think Jimmy Butler needs to be recognized as a great player because he took a Heat team that really didn't have much all the way to the NBA Finals, and this season he's playing possibly the best basketball of his career. I mean, you might say some of those Chicago Bulls days were a little bit better, but he's definitely playing well. Got 21.6 points per game, 7.8 assists, 7.8 rebounds and 7.5 assists. That's if he was scoring more, that would be LeBron James numbers. And just for a guy like him, to be taking a team who's not very good to where they're at right now and to be putting up that type of statistics. I get that he's not doing too much in terms of scoring, but he's passing the ball, he's getting steals and stuff like that, so he's making opportunities for his team, and he definitely makes his team a lot better. So number 14, we have Kyrie Irving, and I don't particularly like Kyrie Irving. I think he's a ball hog, and I feel like, well, James Harden should be the guy scoring close to 30 a game and taking all the shots. Instead, he is, but he settled into that role, and he's doing it well, averaging 28.1 points per game. He's obviously got postseason experience with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and now in Brooklyn, he's looking really good. I feel like you can't have this guy out of the top 15 when he's putting up 28 a game. That's ridiculous. He's scoring at a really high level. And then number 15, we have Paul George. Again, not a very big Paul George fan. He's an absolute choker, and I just think he's overrated. He's obviously a good defender. He's obviously a pretty solid scorer, but there's just nothing about his game that, to me, says, you're one of the best. But I can't ignore the fact that the Clippers, they're going to talk about Kawhi, but he's part of this team's success. He's part of that super team. He might get shadowed, but he still is. And the fact that he's putting up 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 23 points, and 1.1 steals, that's still really good numbers for a guy like him. He's obviously a really good defensive force. That makes that defensive team so good. And, on top of that, really solid in terms of passing and rebounding and stuff like that. And he's a good scorer. 23 points per game is good. So, well, I don't think he's as good as some people portray him. I just feel like he's better than some of the guys who come next who are young and just, I feel like, inexperienced, because he obviously has done some stuff in his career. So next we're going to have Trae Young coming in at the number 16 spot. And Trae Young, everyone's going to be like, oh yeah, this is a really, really good scorer in the league, and that's about it. And he falls into that Devin Booker category. But you'd be wrong, because he's averaged over 9 assists back-to-back seasons, and he averaged 8 assists in the season before. He's averaging 8.8 career assists per game. So he's not just a guy who can give you 25 on a night. He's a guy who can give you 25 and 10 on a night, and I feel like that makes him just an elite player. His Hawks are doing really well this season, and he's kind of all that they have. I'm impressed. He's a really, really good player. Almost averaged 30 points per game in 2019, and now in 2020 to 21, he's not doing nearly as well in terms of scoring, but he's continuing to pass at a high rate. He's continuing to make his team better. He's just a fun young player. And then another fun young player coming at number 17 is Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum is on the Celtics, and he when he came into the league, everyone was like, okay, this is a guy who has some stuff to prove and is a player who can become a superstar. Just the way he plays the game, even if statistically he doesn't look like it, the way he plays the game, there's no denying he's someone who can really dominate, and the way he plays in the postseason is just another thing. He's averaging almost 25 points per game, 6.8 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 1.3 steals. He's a good defender. He's a really strong scorer. He could do it all. Just a really good, I think, small forward, maybe power forward in the league. He's not on the level of some people, and, we're not going to say he is, but he still needs to be regarded as one of the best young players in the league, and a really good player. I don't think you can put him on the level of other people because he just hasn't had that statistical or accolade-wise season, but he's obviously going to break out. He's only 22. The numbers he's putting up at 22 are crazy. He's only going to climb this list, and he's already pretty high on it. So then number 18 is Russell Westbrook, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on Russell Westbrook because he's no longer averaging a 30-point triple-double. But that doesn't mean he's not playing really well. In Houston last season, he averaged 27.2 points per game, which is really, really good. He did not decline. He just didn't fit the James Harden team. But he's back up to averaging almost a triple-double this season. He's got 9.7 rebounds and 10.2 assists. He's 0.3 rebounds away, and he could easily do it because there's plenty of time left in this season. He's not scoring nearly as much. That's due to Bradley Beal, who's just dominating the offensive side on his team. He only has 22 per game. But if you look at someone who's putting up 22, 10, 10, you'd say that's a top 20 player. So that's my thinking. Even if his team's not doing that well, even if he's not playing as well as he used to, even if he's kind of old, even if he's not scoring at a very high level, he's still a triple-double machine, and he still needs to be regarded as one of the best players in the league. And then coming in at 19 is Devin Booker. Don't know too much about Devin Booker, but I think he's a pretty good player. He's averaging 25.2 points per game. He's averaged almost 24.9 plus in 4 straight seasons. He's still young, only 24 years old. And he doesn't do a lot else. He's a pretty bad passer for his position, and he's a pretty bad rebounder for his... I mean, I guess not a bad rebounder because people just can't rebound when they're point guards. But just a good scoring point guard, a young player. He can still develop into one of the best scorers in the league. And having Chris Paul on his team, that can only help. The Suns are doing really well this year, and it's because of Chris Paul. He's helped develop Devin Booker into a better player. And I think Booker, I don't see nearly as much potential as like a guy like Trae Young or a guy like Jason Tatum, but he's still a good player. He still deserves to be here. And then a player who could have gone ahead of Booker, but I just didn't think so, is Donovan Mitchell. He's also a very young player. He's only 24 years old, and he's averaging 25.3 points per game this season with 5 assists and 4 rebounds. Now, if you look at other stats other than just like scoring, he's probably better than Booker, but Booker has more scoring value than Mitchell does. And even though Mitchell's had a lot of postseason success, or at least postseason appearances, Booker's going to have that after the season, and I think that's only going to continue. I know Chris Paul's old, but he still has some seasons on him, and he's still, even if he's not that valuable of a player, he's still valuable in terms of making a team better and making individual players better. So I definitely see Booker getting a lot better because of that. And I feel like Mitchell, he's at that point where you start to question if he's really going to get to that next level. And I mean, his Utah team is doing incredibly this season, but I don't see him ahead of Booker just because Booker's a slightly better scorer, and I feel like he just has more stuff with him. It's a hard decision. I can see it either way. So that's going to be my top 20 players in the league. I completely understand if you don't think it's right, and you're probably have a better sense of how the NBA works than I do, but that's just my opinion. This didn't take me very long. Just kind of threw together a ranking, but please like and subscribe. Please check out Fantasy League Baseball. That's the channel I have with my friends. And yeah, thanks for watching.